Welcome back to Her Birth, Her Story, where we share real birth experiences. I'm Brooke, your host, and on today's episode, we are sitting down with Kelsey, who is a mom of three, and she is also very big into scrunchy living. So in the show notes, I have tagged her Instagram if you want to follow along to see different swaps that you can make to help lower your toxin burden. I am so excited for this episode because this is great for all the moms out there who really want an unmedicated birth but don't want to just do a home birth. They really want to see if an unmedicated birth is possible in the hospital. And Kelsey does a great job at sharing her stories and explaining the preparation and the why behind she chose an unmedicated birth at the hospital. She even talks about how important your support team is and why it is so important to birth where you feel safe and who you feel safest with. She has had 3 unmedicated hospital births where each one has their own story of how special and how amazing it is, and she truly gets to showcase what it looks like to birth with providers that respect your preferences and your wishes in birth at the hospital. So please join me as we hold space for Kelsey and her stories. Hey, Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on Her Birth, Her Story. Can you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Kelsey Vinsel. I am a mom of 3, ages 6, 4, and 2. I am in Central Ohio. I'm technically a certified physician assistant, but I decided to stay home after my 3rd was born. So that was 2.5 years ago, and I'm still here. Yeah. But about a little over a year ago, I started an Instagram page where I talk about like low tox living and helping people navigate cleaning up their lifestyles and then just real mom life. So that's kind of kept me busy, but yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And honestly, do you want to share what your Instagram handles are for that if anybody's really looking into the low tox life?
Sure. Yeah. So it's Scrunchy Suburban Mama. So kind of like crunchy, but I call myself Scrunchy because it's kind of a middle ground between both extremes because I feel that being extreme in either way is just not healthy. So finding that middle ground, I feel like it makes it more approachable for people. So I'm on there almost every day, just sharing like realistic tips and tricks and various things for lowering your toxic load and cleaning up your lifestyle in all aspects of life. So
I love
yeah,
that.
follow me. And my DMs are always open if you have questions about anything specific.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll make sure that I put that in the show notes for anybody who wants to follow along. We always have a lot of women in that low tox lifestyle, but you had mentioned to me how you had a very unique experience kind of in your schooling that you visited kind of a OBGYN rotation, and after you witnessed that you were like, yeah, no, this is exactly what I do not want. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So when I was in my PA school rotations, this was right after my husband and I got married. So we weren't like quite ready to start a family yet.
Yeah.
But it was one of my first rotations. And I was really excited because I actually thought I wanted to go into birth work in some way. And I guess just what I saw was just a lack of informed consent, people being very disconnected from their birth experience, and the providers really running the show. And it was something that I was just like, it made me take like a second, like, I don't know if this is how it's supposed to be. And then there was just a lot of induction talk. There was a lot of planned things. And I'm just like, I feel like it shouldn't be this planned out. Then there was one specific thing that I heard from not my provider. I will say, like, the provider I was with was amazing, but it is in a small town, one hospital town where they just kind of do the things the way they do them. There's not a lot of like, there are options, but people don't know they have options. But there was something I heard one provider say. Basically, she had a vacation coming up and she was like, I got to get these babies out before I go on this trip because I don't want my trip disrupted. And I was just like thinking, like, why should these people be, planning their births around your life? Like, I don't know. So
Yeah.
that always stuck with me. Okay. So then I had a really great experience. I got to do a lot of hands-on work there, which was really great. It kind of opened my eyes up to birth in general, but I just always had in the back of my head, like, I'm not sure that this is the way birth should be. I feel like people need a little more agency over what's like birth isn't happening to you. You're part of it. You and your baby are a team, and like the provider's there to provide services, not be like, I don't know. So that stuck with me. And then the next year when my husband and I started thinking about having a baby. And then once we got pregnant, like I dove deep into like birth work, thinking like, how can I make my experience different than that? So
Yeah. And can you kind of speak to that too? Like, what kind of prep did you do before you were pregnant and when you were pregnant with your first?
So it really just came down to options. Like, what choices do I have? Like, I don't have to do the things that are common, especially in like I said, that small town where this is how it always goes.
Yep.
I was just like, well, how could it go? What are the options? What are the choices? So, I didn't even realize there was choices between even your providers. Like, you don't have to see an OB, you can see a midwife team. So that was always something that I was like, I want to do. So that was
Yeah.
one of the first things when I found out I was pregnant. I'm like, I want a midwife team. My husband and I were pretty set on wanting a hospital birth just because I had the medical background. I was just not with my first. I was just like, I think I would want a hospital birth, but
Yeah.
I want a midwife team and I want a doula because being in the hospital, I wanted that person that was kind of on the outside that was advocating for me and not the hospital system.
Yep.
And so those were the two things I set up pretty much right away. But then just diving, honestly, like this is how I am, my personality. I dive real deep headfirst into things. So I dove headfirst into like natural birth, low intervention birth with the mindset of it may not go exactly as I planned, but if I at least know my options and then I even know what to shift to or pivot to if things go differently.
Yeah.
So I think it was just kind of honestly like educating myself on all realms of birth, all of the options, how things could go, and going from there. So I learned a lot along the way,
Yeah.
especially with those resources, with my midwives, my doula. She was great in educating me on my options too.
Yeah, I love that too, just because I feel like, and this is like the thing that just upsets me so much, is that as women, we're not really taught in any realm of how birth actually is, like the physiological side of birth. And we have to take it into our own hands to make sure that we learn that. And like, I just feel that that is such a disservice to women. A lot of women, when they go to their OB or their midwife, they think that they're the ones that are going to educate them on all of their options truly and how it works and what to expect. And that's never how it is. And I have heard more from like the home birth side though too, that home birth midwives do help with that some, but at the end of the day, you have to take everything into your own hands. And if you don't know where to start or even understand that you have options, that's when it just, I don't know, it's just really, really sad that women kind of just have a disservice like that, I guess.
Yeah. And I feel like you can't have informed consent if you don't know your choices. Like you just really can't. Like it's just not there. If you don't know your options,
Yeah.
like I don't know. And so I agree. I mean, it is important. Like the first thing I tell people that reach out to me, like, oh, I want to have an unmedicated low intervention birth. Like, what should I do? I'm like, educate yourself. Literally just educate yourself. Listen to as many birth stories as possible so you can see how things could potentially go. And you think about what you would do in that situation because you don't want to be at a pivotal moment in your birth when you are really like outside of your own brain or your body trying to make a decision because you don't really know your choices. And that's where like a birth preferences sheet, having your doula or your partner or somebody like that to advocate is important too. But
Yeah.
I agree. The education up front and throughout your whole pregnancy. I mean, this is just motherhood in general. Like you just have to educate yourself
Yeah.
and be an advocate for yourself, your baby, your family without worrying about stepping on the toes of the people that you're going to interact with for such a brief time in your life, like your birth. And I've heard someone say this on your podcast before, like your birth story, it might just be such a snippet of time, but it will stick with you for the rest of your life. You will never forget it because it's such a wild experience and just like it just sticks with you. So you want that to be as positive as possible. And you don't want to like give in to your wishes just because someone else is like pushing you
Yeah.
the other way.
Yeah, and especially at their own inconvenience too. I think that's always my biggest like frustration too, is that a lot of things in the hospital, and this isn't talking all the time, but a lot of times it's always out of, just like you had said, it's just common, it's just what they do, and it's not like an actual necessity that, like, just from plenty of women that I've talked to on this podcast, I always hear the same thing. With the first one, they always say, "Oh, I wasn't educated enough. That's the one thing I wish I could have changed, was that I wish I was more educated because the outcomes might have been different." And then their second one, they have at least a better of an experience because they have true informed consent. And I think that that's the biggest thing for me is that everybody has informed consent no matter how you choose.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be your consecutive births where you have your preferences. Like it can be your first, just because you're a first time mom or first time pregnant person, like you don't have to let other people guide you. You can still show up with your preferences, even though you've never done it before.
Yep.
If you educate yourself, you can still do things the way that you want to do it.
Yeah. No, for sure. So now I'm going to go ahead and just let you share your first birth story uninterrupted.
Okay, so my timeline of my pregnancy was kind of funny because I thought that I could plan this all out, which looking back, it worked out well for me. But I'm like, who was I to think I could plan this all out? So I said I was in PA school. My husband and I got married. And then the following year, I got pregnant in February of 2019. So I got pregnant in February. I graduated PA school in August. So I did a lot of my rotations, pregnant, sick my first trimester. I wouldn't recommend that. And then I took my boards 2 weeks later. And then I had about a month of just getting the house ready and kind of getting everything set up. And then had her in October, which was crazy. It was just a lot. I don't know if I'd recommend that. But throughout my pregnancy, I did a lot of prep. I saw a chiropractor regularly, stayed super active. So I felt really ready. I felt, for the action of birth. But with your first time, you just don't know like what's going to happen. So it was, I think, like 39 and like 3 days or so. My husband and I, it was a Friday night. My husband and I went out for dinner, went to a local cantina. If you're local, you understand that place. I got like the spiciest tacos on the menu because of the whole thing with the spicy stuff. And my husband and I kind of laughed about it. But so we went to dinner Friday night. Overnight that night, oddly enough, at like 4 a.m., I had a contraction in the middle of the night. It woke me up. It was enough to like wake me up. And I laid there for a minute and I was like, was that real? I don't know. But I went back to sleep because I was like, I don't know. About 45 minutes later, I woke up and I was with another one. And I was like, this is something. So I got up, went to the bathroom and had another one. So at this point I was like, okay, something's happening, but I'm not ready to like alert the world. And this is like one of my favorite things that I did for this impending birth. I sat in my master closet. We had like a nice big master closet and I sat there and kind of like meditated, gave me and the baby a pep talk. I turned on some like relaxing music and I literally just sat there and I was like, we're a team. We're going to do this. Because I did have a little hesitation going to the hospital with my preferences. So anyway, that was really special. So I did that for like, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes. And then finally, like these contractions were getting closer. So I'm like, I better wake my husband up. Luckily for my first birth, we were downtown Columbus. So we were like 5 minutes away from Ohio State, which is where I delivered. And so I woke him up, but it wasn't anything super, first time mom, it's going to take a while. So I think I woke him up around 5. And then by like 5:30, I was like laying over my birthing ball, like moaning and I was in probably full blown like active labor. So my husband started freaking out. He's like, we got to go. And let me tell you, that 5-minute car ride was brutal.
Yeah.
Being in active labor in the car, like that is one reason I would do a home birth. I don't want to ride in the car when I'm in labor. So anyway, we got to the hospital, first time mom, they're like, oh, there's no sense of urgency, but I'm like, this is happening like quickly. So I think I got there around 6. They got me in triage. They want to do a 20-minute strip of the baby's heartbeat to make sure things are fine. Wanted, intermittent fetal monitoring, but I was fine with that. While they did that, my husband was reading me affirmations, which was really nice, like just calming. My doula got there about that time because she lived closer to the hospital. So she just came down to the hospital. We didn't really have a ton of time at home. So she was kind of doing some pressure on me and my husband reading affirmations. Then finally I was like, this is like getting really real. I need to be able to move around. So once they got that 20-minute strip, they sent me to my room and I had on my preferences that I wanted a birthing tub and I wanted that option. And I was shocked that when I got into my room, they had that birthing tub up. They had it filling with water already.
Wow.
It was only like 15 minutes before I could actually get into it, which was amazing. Like it was great because it was a sense of relief. Like I wasn't sure if I'd like the water or not, but I think I was in the tub from like 7 to like 8:30 or so for like an hour and a half. I was in the tub kind of hands and knees, laying on my back. And the amazing part is the midwife I had, which Mind you, this is a hospital-based midwife team. She was in that room with me for like 45 minutes, pouring water on my belly, encouraging me. Like, it was the most magical thing. The lights were dim. We had music playing. It was so lovely. So just a little encouragement for people that are scared of a hospital birth. Like,
Yeah.
you can still have that relaxing environment. So anyway, I was just kind of going with the flow. And then at one point, they were kind of like, okay, maybe we should see like where the baby is. And I was like, I'm not getting out of here. And she's like, well, I could check you, or you could just put your finger up there yourself and tell me which knuckle she's
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
And so I say she, but we didn't know the gender, which was really cool. I'll share that later. So I did. And it was really, really cool that I was just like, nobody touched me. I was able to kind of feel, and I don't know, at that point, she was maybe like 2 knuckles deep. And they're like, okay, she's pretty close. Like, just keep in mind that she might be coming any of these times you feel an urge. And so shortly after that, I had this intense urge to poop. I know lots of people feel this, but truly it felt like I had to poop. Like, I
Yeah.
was like, this is not the baby. Like, I actually have to poop. So I was like, this is embarrassing. I'm getting out. I'm going to go try to poop and come back. I was sitting on that toilet and I was so uncomfortable. And they were like telling me through the door, like, make sure she's not coming out. And so I reached down and she was coming out. So I kind of like waddled to the bed. I didn't really feel like getting back in the water, to be honest. They would have they were happy to let me get back in, but they're like, whatever you want. So I just instinctively laid on the bed. I laid on my left side, which is funny because I did this for all 3 births, just instinctively. I laid on my left side. I had my doula holding my leg, and I did a lot of pelvic floor physical therapy prep stuff when I was pregnant. And they were telling me about how like the angle of your hip and where your knee and hip are to help open the pelvis.
Yep.
So I had like my doula holding my hip in the right direction. I was squeezing my comb. And I think within like 2 pushes, she was out.
Wow.
Again, we didn't know the gender. And my midwife knew that my husband wanted to catch her. So he put on some gloves and he actually was able to like catch her, pull her out, hand her to me. He was supposed to announce the gender, but he was terrified that he was going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So he handed her to me. She went on my chest, immediately cried, was like healthy as ever. So at that point, she was 39 and 4, I believe. And she was 8 pounds, 2 ounces.
Wow.
Like I said, healthy. We let the cord pulse until it was done, white. And then my husband cut the cord and my placenta. I mean, it was just one of those things. This is another thing I saw in my rotation on NPA school is they like, as soon as the baby was out, they cut the cord and they would pull that placenta, like yank the placenta out. And like, that was not my experience. It just kind of came out eventually, like on its own a little bit,
Yep.
I had no crazy amount of bleeding. I had no tears for that birth for the first time. I was feeling really good, honestly. So it was just like such a great experience.
You had mentioned a really powerful moment during this first birth of just like checking yourself and then just kind of guiding your baby's head out too, of just, breathing and laboring that way. So, what did it feel like to truly be the primary provider in your own delivery in the hospital?
I mean, honestly, it was just like kind of shocking because you see everything you see on like movies and all the things is like a woman laying on her back, screaming her head off, like, and the provider just like pulling the baby out. And that was not my experience at all for any of my births, but specifically this one with the like checking myself, feeling her head. And I had this experience with my third as well of just, and my doula pointed this out, like, how cool is that you're feeling your baby right in between 2 worlds? Like you're like they're on the brink of being delivered, but still in there. I don't know. It was just really cool. And being able to be the person like she's this far up. I don't know. I just felt very connected to my birth, connected to my baby. And that's how it should be. Like you are not on the outside. You are the birth. Like, you know what I mean? So it really, I mean, I've felt that all 3 times, just really, it is almost an out of body experience in a way because you're just like in your own world, whatever was happening around me, like I wasn't even aware of necessarily because you're just zoned in. So it was just very powerful to be in that place where they're like, "Well, you just tell us, like, you tell us when she's coming out, you tell us when you're ready," which was really cool. One thing I forgot with her is my water didn't break until she was coming out. I have a video of her, which they didn't recommend I do that. They don't like that, but I did it anyway. I had my doula do it, take a video. But as her head was coming out, my water broke everywhere because that was another thing. I didn't want my water broken by anyone except for my baby. So that was really cool too. because her head when she first started coming out was like still in the sack, which was really neat.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, that's crazy that they don't really encourage you to, like, record and stuff like
I
that
think it's for
because,
liability purposes. Like if something were to be videoed that they did wrong, it'd be like,
well,
I don't
then
know.
don't do something wrong, I guess.
Right, right, right.
Like,
I mean, I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let you just tell your second birth story uninterrupted.
So for my second, which we did find out her gender, I got progressively less patient on the gender finding out. Like for my first, we didn't find out till birth. My second, we found out at the anatomy scan. And then my third, I'm like, I need to know as soon as possible.
That's so funny.
So we knew she was a little girl. So my oldest was 2 years and 8 months ish when my second was born. So she was still little. She spent the night at her grandma's the night before, thinking like, oh, maybe this will happen. My husband and I went to dinner, kind of like my first birth, thinking it would happen. And it did not. So, but it was nice. We got like one last date night in. And then Sunday, before we picked my daughter up, I just like did all kinds of stuff around the house. I did like a body pump workout class that morning, lots of stretching, getting the nursery ready, blackout curtains, all the things. And then we got my daughter and dinner. After dinner, I sat down on the couch. I think my daughter was sitting there cuddling with me. And all of a sudden, I had a contraction, which I've had Braxton Hicks like all three of my pregnancies, pretty intense one. So I didn't think anything of it, but I'm like, it always helps to go to the bathroom to pee, like relieve some of the pressure. So I stood up to go pee and felt a big gush of fluid. And I'm like, I know I did not just pee myself. That was probably my water, which was a little frustrating because my first, like I said, it didn't break until she was coming out. You just have, when you want an unmedicated birth, you know that when that sack of waters breaks or leaks, like there's sort of a ticking time clock on you, especially for a hospital birth.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, that's a little frustrating. But I was like, it's fine. It's good. We're all good. So I went to the bathroom, got a Depends on me, called the midwife group just because my first birth was only like 5.5, 6 hours from first contraction to birth.
Wow.
So like fairly quick for like a first time mom.
Yeah.
So they were like, for consecutive pregnancies and births, like just be mindful that things could go faster. So that was always in my head. Like, I do not want to deliver this baby at home or in the car without being prepared. And at this point, we had moved to the suburbs. So we were 35 ish, depending on traffic, could be up to like 45 to 50 minutes away. So I called the midwife group and they were like, just because of, your history of a, shorter birth or labor with your first, maybe start thinking about heading this way, even though I was having no other symptoms, no other contractions or nothing happening yet. So I definitely dilly-dallied. I was like, I'm not rushing there. We had to get care for my oldest. Luckily, it was really special because we were able to tuck her into bed, knowing that would probably be our last time as like a family of three. So it was really sweet. Like we tucked her into bed and all that. We had our neighbor come over until my mom got there because she's a bit away. So she had to drive up, but she was in good hands. So we headed to the hospital. I think I got to the hospital around like 8. I have video and like pictures of us just like bringing our wagon in all casual. And I'm not kidding you. By 8:15, I was in triage and they're trying to like test my fluid. And they're like, I don't know, this doesn't really look like amniotic fluid. And I'm like, I did not pee myself. I'm telling you, it's amniotic fluid. Literally minutes after that, I was like in full blown active labor. I was having contraction after contraction. This birth was an absolute whirlwind, to be honest, because I'm like casually going in there at 8 o'clock. Okay, I got to the hospital. 8:15, full blown contractions. They didn't even have time to do the full 20-minute strip because they're like, we got to get you to your room. So I got to my room. I thought I was going to have time to get in like a tub again. And they were like, we don't think you really have time for that based on these that were like back to back to back, which was like fine. It was good, but they were much more intense and close together than my first.
Yeah.
So it was a little less relaxing, I will say. And for some reason, my husband and I just felt like we didn't need our doula for the second birth. We were like, we got this. Like, we know what we're doing now. Looking back, I'm like, maybe we should have. But it was also sort of still COVID times because they still had certain protocols in place and whatever. So it was just my husband and I, but he is well versed. We did all the birth training together outside of the hospital. And so he was doing counter pressure. He was helping me with position changes. I did a lot of hands and knees over the back of the hospital bed. But this one was much more just like get in the room. I think I got in there at like 8:30. And then around like, I don't know, 9:30 or so is when things like I'm starting to feel the urge to push and all of that. So I laid on my left side again, like I have. At this point, it was, like 9:30, 9:45. And this one, it took probably more like 6 or 7 contractions. Like it was a little more lengthy, but the labor was shorter. Anyway, so 6 or 7 contractions, and I pushed her out. Midwife this time grabbed her. I'm trying to remember. She grabbed her and put her on my chest or on my belly because she had a short cord. So like they started to pull her out, and it was like she stopped abruptly, and they were like, "Okay, short cord, whatever." So they put her on my belly, and then same thing. We let the cord sit for, I don't know, it'd been minutes, I think. And then once I felt like comfortable with cutting it, my husband cut it. And yeah, she was, let's see, so she was 38 and 3 when she was born.
Oh, wow.
And she was 7 pounds, 2 ounces. So she was my smallest baby, which I forgot to mention this at the beginning. So during my prenatal visits, there was a point where they brought up like the big baby conversation because my belly was measuring slightly big. And to me, that conversation was kind of just like, I'm not that worried about that. Like, I can do it. My first baby was 8'2". Like, I'm not that worried about it. But it was something it was always in my head. But it's funny because she was my smallest baby. She was also breech for a period of time during my pregnancy, probably like at 30, from like 30 weeks to 34 weeks, she was breech, which is so stressful when you want to have an unmedicated birth. Cause I'm like, what do I do here? Do I just switch to a home birth and do a breech birth? Do I, but thank goodness she was head down. She came out perfect. I think I had a minor tear for that one because it was so fast and furious, but she didn't even put a stitch in because it didn't need it. So yeah.
Yeah, the breach can just be really scary when you're doing a hospital birth because their first thing is always C-section. And
Yeah.
because my son, my second, was breech until 37 weeks, and I had to go get a ECV because I didn't want to have to change my midwife either because my home birth midwife isn't certified in breech birth. So she technically couldn't do it. And so, but she had said, like, hey, like, I know this guy who is really good at it and can do it. And I can tell you it's very uncomfortable. But just the fact that he was able to flip him head down, that I could still have an unmedicated birth was literally like, I literally bawled because I was just so excited. Just because you're preparing.
You had the ECV and he flipped?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I was researching that whole thing after I found out she was breech. But again, still at like 30, 34, like they're still moving around a lot.
yeah.
So I knew that. But it is still very stressful. So I started seeing my chiropractor who has patients that are pregnant and breech babies all the time. And so I started seeing him like twice a week for probably that whole month that she was breech, or like flipping back and forth between breech. And we were always trying to figure out where she was.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that helped too. I remember the day I called them. I called the office, and I had gone there for all my pregnancies. So I called them and I was like, my baby's breech. And he literally was like, this is our wheelhouse. You are going to be fine. She is going to flip. We're going to take care of you. Like, they gave me such relief of like, okay,
I love that.
this is why you have a team. You have a team of all of these different people that help you out. That made me feel relieved. But anyway, yeah. So she was not breech, but there's a lot of information. Have you heard of evidence-based birth?
I love using that as a lot of kind of like, from my research, I did a lot of that, especially with circumcision and just other choices that you can make just to truly get. I just love how they come from an unbiased point where it's just like, here's this, here's that, and then you just kind of like make a choice with it, but it gives you evidence of why, basically.
Right. It's truly based on like research and science and not just what's commonly done or whatever. So I feel like that's a really nice resource for people, especially with like the big baby conversation and all that. It gives you like a 1-page printout that you can take to your provider and be like, here's the research, like this is what it is. So anyway, I did that.
Yeah. No,
So that's a nice
good
resource for people.
Yeah. And I honestly, I will probably put their website. They also have a podcast too, that
Yes,
shares
their
really
podcast is
good
good.
birth stories too, and just like some evidence stuff. So honestly, I'll put that in the show notes too, because I do think that that is a very, 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 very good resource just as you're kind of educating yourself too, to not really get biased information. It's just, and they're not really telling you how you should think and what you should do. They're just more laying out all the information, and then you just take what you want, leave what you don't, and there you go. But I love that.
Yeah. You can search her resources by like the topic, which is really nice. Because if you don't care about any of the other stuff, but you are interested in like circumcision, evidence. You can just specifically look at that, which is great.
Yeah, and actually my midwife uses a lot of their stuff as resources for her patients, that when I was asking a lot of questions, she sent me a lot of links to their stuff to like help me feel better about my choices. I think that's neat. And I love that there's that option, especially for moms too, that we want to educate ourselves so that we truly feel like we're making the best decision for us and our baby, and not just what Susie did down the street because we're trying to compete with her, or we think since Susie can do it, I can do it. And that might be true, but also like that's not a good reason just to do an unmedicated birth or to make a decision. Like truly make an educated decision from the research that you have done. But that's kind of a tangent.
Right. No, believe me, I go on tangents constantly.
So, this birth was so fast. And when things move quickly like that, it can be so hard to just like stay grounded and, really not feel overwhelmed. So, how did you really just kind of surrender and kind of to like the teamwork aspect, like you had spoke to with your baby when your labor took off this quickly?
Yeah, so like I said, the contraction started at 8:15. She was born at 9:57. So like that's insane.
Yeah.
Technically my labor started when my water broke is what they say, so 6:30, but I'm saying from contraction to birth, like that is so fast.
Yeah.
And so once things picked up, I mean, thankfully I had, the foundation of, all the tools. And like I said, my husband was a huge help in that too. And that's where a doula would come into to just like do the things without you asking what you need. Like they just start jumping in. Like my husband was doing counter pressure without me even asking.
Wow.
He got me a washcloth for my head, my comb to squeeze, which I did for all three. It's like a pressure point thing. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So I feel like for that one specifically, where I barely got like a moment to just like recover between these contractions because they were so intense, like your body just takes over. And that birth specifically is one where I felt like I was like having an out of body experience where I'm just like, after she was born and it all just like comes crashing down and you're just like calm again. Like it was like, what just happened to me? It was kind of crazy. I still felt in control and I still felt like, I was part of the process for sure, but it was definitely much more like with that one, I like was just focusing on myself and my body less so than the first one where I was like guiding her down and it was so calm. Like that one, I was just like, get this baby out. But I feel like you just have to, like you said, surrender to the process. What I kept repeating in my head, and I've done this all three times, but especially that time is like, I am prepared for this. I'm made for this. My body and my baby, we're a team. Like she knows what to do. Like she knew what to do with. And if you listen to the video of her being born, the midwife was like, oh my gosh, look at that rotation. Her head completely turned, which they have to do to get around the pelvic bone. I mean, it was like wild. And obviously you don't have to think about that as the person like, birthing.
Yeah.
But that's the beautiful thing is like, you just trust your baby. They know what to do. You know what to do. Focus on your breath. Try to keep yourself grounded and calm because I mean, birth is something where if your body doesn't feel safe, it's not going to relax and just, do what it's supposed to do. So the more that you can just keep yourself like as calm as possible, grounded and breathing, I think that was what really helped at least just like keep things moving. So yeah, surrendering and just let your body do what it knows to do.
Can you kind of speak to the difference between your first that was obviously quicker, but not as quick as your second versus your precipitous labor?
I mean, it was just so much more intense. Like I felt with my first, I never had a point where I was like, I can't do this. With my second, when she was like flying down the birth canal, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like there was a point where I was like, this is so much. Like it was so intense all at once rather than like, oh, I'm going to have a contraction and it's really intense. And then I get a second to breathe. It was just so intense. And so again, like I had the foundation to kind of calm myself, but I will say like that one was definitely more, it stuck with me in the like, literally it was a whirlwind. It was just so intense. And so, but like preparing yourself for situations like that again is like important just because it was so intense and because it happened the way it happened. Like it didn't make it a negative experience in any way. It was just one of those things. She was ready to bust out of there, I guess. It is what it is. I still felt very much involved. It was just a little bit more focusing on me rather than like helping her out. She was doing her thing. I was doing my thing. We were just a separate entity in a little bit, just to get through it. But yeah, I would just say it was just much more intense. But I'm happy I made it to the hospital. That was the biggest thing for me. Because
Yeah.
had I dilly dallied more at home, I may not have made it, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. I can definitely relate to that because my second one came very, very quickly. Just like how you had said, like it's just intense from the start to the finish. There's like no breaks. And that's exactly how I felt. I literally woke up from a nap and it was just like balls to the walls from start to finish. And like I even told my husband because I like to labor on the toilet. And I was like sitting on the toilet and I literally told my husband, I said, if this is how intense this is going to be, I don't know how long I can stick this out. Little did I know I was already in transition at that
100%.
point.
And usually that's how it goes. As soon
Yeah.
as you say something like that, they're like coming out.
Yeah. Exactly. And
So, yeah,
it's just such a wild experience. So,
very fast and furious. No
yeah.
time to think. And I think that's when it's nice to have your birth preferences too, that your support person knows. Because when you're in that like intense, like, had he not known what I wanted, like, I wouldn't have been able to vocalize anything that I wanted or needed at the moment. I
Yeah.
literally couldn't. I was just like, eyes closed, just focusing on my body. So that's
Yeah.
where kind of having the support people is really helpful too.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up too. Just because, I mean, even if your first one was fast or your first one was slow, does not guarantee that that's exactly how your next one's going to go. So, just having your preferences there or having people to advocate for you is crucial because when you're going through a precipitous labor like that, that's exactly what you want to do. Just close your eyes, stay in labor land, and get it done as quick as possible. For sure.
Right. And this was why we had our doula again for the third. So I
Yeah.
was like, what was I thinking? I needed her there. I mean, we were fine, but I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm getting her again for the third.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about birth number 3.
Okay, so for my third, my oldest was not even 4 yet. She was a month shy of 4. My middle was like 19 months. So they were pretty little. So I was just busy. I mean, that entire pregnancy, just super active. You know, like with consecutive pregnancies, you're just like running around, like doing
Yeah.
all the things. That was definitely my most like exhausted pregnancy. Like I was just constantly just like, I need to like relax. But all of my pregnancies, I will say, I've been pretty health, like I've not had any issues, felt pretty good besides like the first trimester nausea. But this pregnancy was the one where the big baby conversation was like more of a thing. Like I
Mm.
said it a little bit with my second, but my third, it was like midway through. Even at the anatomy ultrasound, they were saying that he was measuring big. And again, like I brought my resources out. I knew that it was something I wasn't like worried about, but they just kept bringing it up. And there were a couple specific midwives that I saw that seemed to be more concerned than others. So I didn't go back to them. But it was just like, why are you guys so fixated on this? I've birthed 2 babies, one being over 8 pounds. Like I had no concern. But anyway, that was the one thing in my head with this one. Everything was super, super healthy and fine. But that was just the thing in the back of my head. Like, okay, is he going to be gigantic? But I feel like I do a really great job at eating, very balanced and nourishing and, all the things. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm really not that worried. But anyway, so let's see. So I was about 39 weeks on the dot and it was an Ohio State football Saturday. We were outside at a friend's house. It was like, I mean, it was September. So September 3rd. So it was like hot and I was chasing the kids around. And one of my friends was like, if you don't go into labor tonight, I'm going to be shocked because you have been chasing your kids around and da da da. And I'm like, I don't know. Cause my first was born at 39 and 3. My second was 38 and 3. And then here we are at like 39 on the dot. So I'm like, it could be. Sure enough, that night at 2:45 a.m., I felt a contraction that woke me up. And again, it was one of those things you feel it and you're just like, is this real? Is it not? So I laid there for a few minutes and had another one. I think I got up and peed and had another one. And I was like, oh dear, here we go. So I started timing them. At this point, we have 2 kids, so we need to get care for them in the middle of the night. We're gonna have to wake someone up. So I did wake my husband up around 4 because I was like, I think this is happening with the history of my second, with it being so fast. I was a little like, okay, a little more urgency with this. Because again, we're still in the suburbs. We have that long drive. And so we did have my mother-in-law come around 4:30. So she got to our house at 4:30. My other kids were sleeping. My husband was just kind of like doing some things. I don't know what he was doing, but I was in the living room, just leaning over my birth ball, just in my own little world, and it was really lovely. I had all the lights dimmed. I had some music on and I was just like, yeah, in labor land. I did end up calling my doula to come to me. She lives closer to the hospital, but I was like, I'd feel better about you coming here just to be with me at this point. So anyway, she came to me. She got there probably around like 5, and she's a nurse. Before she was a doula, she's a nurse too. So I actually had her check me. I didn't say this, but in all of my pregnancies, I really didn't do cervical checks. But for this one, just because of my precipitous labor with my second, I was like, is this something where I should be like headed there now, or do we have time? I was just kind of, and it's never linear, but it kind
Yeah.
of gives you a little bit of guidance on where like if I'm 9 centimeters, I got to go.
Yeah.
But so she did check me. And at that time, I was really only like 4 to 5 centimeters. So she's like, it could progress quickly or you could have some time. So we actually did stay home for a little bit longer. And then I felt just this intuition of like, things are getting more intense. Like I felt that. I was like, I think we better go. I think this was like 6:15. And so my mother-in-law was there to take care of the kids. We wanted to also get out of the house before anybody woke up because I didn't want to stress out my other kids or whatever. So we headed down around 6:15. I think we got there. Of course, there's no traffic early morning on a Sunday. So we headed down, and that ride was also horrific. I was in like full blown labor at that point. Every contraction, I was just like, ugh, but it was fine. It was funny because when we walked into the hospital, my husband was like, do you need a wheelchair? And I was like, I'm fine. I can walk. Within 5 seconds, I was like, oh my God, I need a wheelchair. So, because it was like picking up quickly. So they ended up getting me a wheelchair, getting me up there. Again, in triage, I don't know if we had time to do the full 20-minute strip because they were happening so quickly. I think I got to my room around probably like 7 or 7:15. And it was really neat because this was our first boy. Found out early on, and we are big Buckeye fans. In our room, it was like Sunday morning, beautiful sunrise, and the light was just shining right on the Ohio Stadium. Like we had a view of the Ohio Stadium,
Wow.
and that's where I was like laboring and watching. I don't know. It was just really cool. I went to my room, and that midwife, who I loved, absolutely loved too, she was great. I'd had her through all my pregnancies. So I was happy to see her. She just has a really calming voice, calming presence. She knew about the big baby thing. She didn't care about it at all. She was just like, this birth specifically was probably the most like, well, I don't know. The first one was calm, but this one, she literally was like in the corner, like, let me know if you need me. Like she was just hanging out. And so she's like, you know what you're doing. Like you feel very like in your zone. So I'm going to leave you alone. They dimmed the lights for me. So I think I got there around 7:15, and I was on my hands and knees for a while on the back of the bed. And then I've eventually, like I said, like intuition is just to lay on my left side for whatever reason. So as soon as I did that, my husband was like, I think it's happening. So then the midwife came over, they got the team. This one, I will say, I mean, I only had like a couple contractions and pushing before he was out. But the really cool thing about this one, because again, my husband took a video of him actually coming out, it was almost silent in the room for those two pushes. And like that very last part of getting him out, it was silent. Like I didn't make a sound. I was just in my zone. And not to say I wasn't like, because they do say like making those like moans and stuff can be helpful. Maybe I had like a slight, but I was just in my zone, like focused on us and like pushing him out. And it was just so calm. And even after I had him, my doula was there for this one. She was like, that might have been the most relaxing hospital birth I've ever experienced. Because she was like, it was so quiet. Like the midwife was just kind of standing there waiting, just like, all right, when he's falls out, I'll give him to you.
Yeah.
And so with this one though, I was really like, I always had my hand down there, which is, I don't know, it was just one of those things that for me, I like kept doing instinctively for all my pregnancies. But this one, I felt like I was guiding him with each contraction. I knew exactly how far he was coming down with each one. But yeah, the two big contractions, two contractions of pushing, and he was out. With this one, I had no tearing either. He ended up being 7 pounds 8 ounces, so he was right in between my girls. So no big baby, perfectly made. Yeah, no tearing, no issues. Again, we cut the cord once. I was happy with that. And for all 3 of mine, we got like a solid hour of, skin to skin. That's what I really loved about the midwife team too, is they never like pushed you to like go weigh them or do all the things. Like it was just, I remember her giving him to me, and she was like, I'll be back later. And like, it maybe was like 2 hours, to be honest, like before she came back to do anything or they came back to weigh him. So yeah, he cried right away. He was a healthy baby boy.
I love that. I love too that you have had 3 unmedicated hospital births, so you are a great advocate for moms who are really desiring that unmedicated birth, but maybe don't wanna do a home birth or just feel better at the hospital. So, for moms who want to experience that, what is your best advice for creating that supportive, low intervention environment?
So, number one is education, like we talked about at the beginning. Educate yourself on all things. Like sometimes you don't even think about like, do you want music playing? Do you want it dim? Do you want like just there's lots of things and you may not know until you're in it,
Yep.
but like knowing that you like all these different options that you have and things that, almost like tools in your toolkit, like that you can pull from whenever you feel like you need them. I had essential oils in my kit. I had my comb. I had my doula and my husband who knew all the things with maybe not all the things, but lots of options
Yeah.
for counter pressure, massage, just, having all of those things in your arsenal to pull from, but then also having your preferences. So I, for every birth, had my preferences and it changed a little bit as we went. I had them on a sheet, a one pager, and I had it uploaded to my chart. I brought multiple copies for the hospital when I got there. My husband's passing them out to everybody, like, here you go, here you go. So they have it to read, a physical copy, because sometimes they don't dig through the chart and find it. So I think knowing what your preferences are. I don't really like to call it a plan because like birth, like it doesn't go to plan, but you have your preferences and you have things to pivot on the backside. I say it was a one pager because I was hoping this wasn't part of it, but on the backside, I even had a C-section plan. If it came to that, these are the few things that I would like for if it came to a C-section. So educating yourself, having those preferences, having your support people, and like I said, the people outside of the hospital system, take a birth education course outside of the hospital because the hospital birth education, they're teaching you how to be a good patient and they're teaching you how to do all the things that they want you to do. Yes, you will learn some things about anatomy and all, but to really understand your options, you really need to go outside of the hospital and find a course that aligns with you. There are so many out there now, but kind of look at what they talk about and choose one that feels like it aligns with you and your family and your preferences. So doing the course and then just literally knowing that your body was made for this. You can do this. People think like, oh, I don't have a high pain tolerance. I don't think I could. But like when you get into that moment and you have those endorphins going and all the things, like it's pretty freaking cool. Like it is the most magical and like empowering thing. Like I remember when I did it with my first and I'm like, oh wow, I just freaking did that. That was I am a superwoman,
Yeah.
It's like there's no awards to be given out for having an unmedicated birth. That's not the point.
Yeah.
When people are like, oh, you just do this so you can say you did it. Like, no, there's a lot of reasons, but it's pretty freaking empowering too, as a woman, as a mom. Um, but I think the more you know about it, that was why I wanted to do it that way. So just education and then just believing in yourself, believing in the process and your baby. You guys are a team. So
Yeah. No, it's really good. And I don't know how you experience this, but for me personally, I just feel like it's a different kind of pain. And
yes.
I don't feel like when people think of pain, they think of like when you break your arm or like I don't know, like if you've ever had a lidocaine shot, I will give birth 50 billion times before I ever get a lidocaine shot ever again in my life. Because I got a mole removed on my toe and the lady was like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You birth kids without medication." Stuck that thing in there and I screamed like nobody's business because no, thank you. That is pain. Me birthing my baby was, and I always reference back just because I'm a former athlete. I love like working out and stuff. And it just feels like obviously there's discomfort, but it just feels like you're like in a marathon. It's more of like exhausting and like exhilarating and all of that stuff than just like excruciating pain. I personally feel.
Yeah, I really would not describe it as pain. Yes, discomfort, intense. Like now, I will say the Ring of Fire, pretty rough. Like all three times, I remember thinking like, "Oi, I don't want to do this again." But here
Yeah.
I am. I had three. I would do it again. We decided our family is complete, but I'm always like, "Does anyone need help having a baby? I'll have it for you," because I would do it over and over again. Like
Yeah.
I loved pregnancy and
Yeah.
birth, and like I know I am great. I don't want to say lucky, but I've had really healthy pregnancies, really lovely birth experiences, but I think a lot of that comes to like the prep, you prep your body, you educate yourself. So, yeah, I wouldn't describe it as pain. And when people are like I don't think I could do it. Or they are like, how could an unmedicated birth be calm? Da da da. I send them that video of me birthing my third,
Yeah.
where it's like face is calm. Like I am just like almost silent. I'm like, this is how birth can look. It doesn't have to be you screaming on your back and like blood vessels bursting out of your eyeballs.
Yeah.
Like truly, it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, I love that. And, you had said too that your husband became well versed in birth and your doula was a huge help too. How did both of them and their roles play such an important role in protecting your birth space and allowing you to just be intuitive?
Well, I think it's like, I mean, you may not consciously feel this, but when you're in a moment like that where it does almost feel like fight or flight when you're in labor, it's a lot going on. You don't have the conscious mind to be like making decisions. So it's almost like a relief in your body that you don't have to make decisions because you have somebody on the outside that isn't going through this experience that can make the help voice those decisions for you. Obviously, the doula can't tell providers like what you want necessarily, but they can remind you, tip you like to like what you want. And then yeah, your support person, like they can make those decisions when you're not able. So I think it gives your body this sense of relief of like, I'm focusing on this part, my actual birth. And I'm gonna I set the stage for everything ahead of time with my provider and or my partner and my preferences. They can handle that while I focus on the actual act of giving birth. So your brain isn't having to focus on any of those choices or any of the things. You really can just zone in and focus on what you're doing, which is getting that baby out, not quickly, but ideally somewhat quickly and healthy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it allows you just to kind of really focus on that.
Yeah, that's really good. And you are a huge advocate for just informed consent. And in all realms, obviously, not just birth too, but what does informed consent truly look like for our first time moms out there?
So informed consent and like the general sense is knowing your choices or knowing educating yourself on all the options and then being able to pick what you want to do. And that's in everything. Even when you're buying a product off the shelf, if you don't know the ingredients and you can't make an informed consent whether you want to buy that product. And so similar thing with birth, if you don't know that you can labor on your hands and knees, you can be on your side, you could be in a tub, you can be on the toilet like you like to do. If you don't know you have these choices, you can't like make an informed decision. And when it comes to consent, like there are so many things like we talked about that I learned in my rotation. Like, they do because it's common, but it's like you're not really you're not really giving informed consent. You're just kind of going with what they say. So truly informed consent is having the conversation about a topic with your provider and then you get to make the decision. Yeah. It's not them telling you what to do or saying this is what we normally do. It's like that's not informed consent. True informed consent is you having all the options laid out and you get to choose.
Yeah. And the pros and cons to every single thing, too, that you can decipher whatever's going to be most beneficial for you. And I think that sometimes in the hospital setting, too, that's where it gets, just like you had said, like policy and stuff like that. I understand, but also like policy still does not override informed consent. A lot of times I feel like sometimes doctors throw out oh, well, it's policy. Okay, well, if it's policy, cool, but that's not informed consent. You're still not laying out my options for me. And this is my body, my baby. I get to choose. And sometimes that might mean
Yeah,
that
and
you
I
need to
feel
fire your provider and get you a new one.
for sure, for sure. And I think every person and everybody's body, baby experience is unique, and the decisions that are made should be individualized. I mean, if you listen to birth stories like this, if you listen to your birth stories on your podcast, every experience is a little bit different. Nothing is going to go exactly the same. Even for me, every birth was a little bit different. So knowing your options and being able to pivot, and I think that's super important because if you just did it by the books or how they always do it, who knows how things could have gone. So I do think, yeah, knowing your options and weighing the risk benefit because sometimes the benefit may outweigh the risk of a certain decision.
Yeah.
And that's in life in general, but specifically when it comes to birth, it's like, well, there's a risk to this. Okay. But at what cost, you know?
Yeah, and I really love that, especially that you spoke to that because that's a huge heart behind this podcast in general. It's not to tell someone what they should think, how they should birth, but just truly laying out what it could look like and asking questions. I think that too many times we think that, oh, well, doctors know more because they are a doctor. And then we just kind of go with it instead of, yeah, they might know more in their specific area. But then that means that you should ask more questions because they should be an expert in that area too. But don't just trust what your doctor says. Like, make sure that you weigh out all the options. But
For sure. Ask questions. I mean, I don't know if if it's, don't quote me on the timeline, but I know that I learned when research comes out, it's often like 10 to 17 years or something like that before those recommendations from that research is actually implemented in guidelines. So something that they know is, has been researched, they're not going to recommend that for a long time. It's not going to be in the medical guidelines for a long time. But if the research is there and you're reading it and you're like, I feel good about this or I don't feel good about this, voice that to your provider. Bring the research. Be like, this is the research. Just because it's not in your guidelines yet doesn't mean it's not legit. So, yeah, ask the questions, have those conversations. The more conversations you have, the better. And if you're feeling shut down, or you're feeling like they kind of just didn't really listen to you, you can find someone else. I know friends that have switched providers halfway through their pregnancy, at the end of their pregnancies.
yeah,
So I have a friend that's actually pregnant now. She's had an OB for 2 of her births and then is switched to the midwife group for the 3rd because she's so frustrated by, they're saying she's advanced maternal age and all of these things. And she's like, I'm over it. I need to find somebody that's more aligned with like my preferences.
yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that she did that too, because that can be kind of scary to switching, but I think it would be even more beneficial for just her mental space and physical for her too to be able to birth how she wants to birth. So,
Right. And I feel like there's a whole thing with like safety in birth. Like I talked about, like having your body relax, open up, allow birth. These people that were running from tigers back in the day, like they truly had this fight or flight and their bodies would react in that way. And you're getting that experience. If you don't feel comfortable with your birthing space, your provider, your support person, the environment you're in when you're giving birth, your body's not going to be able to relax and do what it needs to do. So I feel like having a provider that aligns with you, that you feel comfortable with, is super important.
yeah. And, you have said this a couple of times of just like, you know what, you are made for this. So, what would you say to a mom who might be in like the thick of transition and feeling like, oh, I can't do this? How would you encourage her to just trust her body, trust the team that she developed with her baby?
What I always like to say is trust the process, step into your power. You've done the work, you've educated yourself, hopefully, and you've set up this team. Hopefully you've talked to your baby and you know that you two are a team. Again, your body is made for this. Trust the process, trust the waves. Every time that you have those contractions, you're getting closer and closer to meeting your baby. Don't give up. Although we all feel that during transition of like, we can't do this. Just remind yourself. I have so many memories during birth of like literally out loud sometimes saying like, you can do this. You've got this. Or have your provider say this to you out loud. Like, say these things for over and over and over. Step into your power, because as a mom and as you go into motherhood, that is how it is. You have to advocate for your child for the rest of their life. So why not start now in birth? Because it's important and it matters.
Yeah, that's really good. I like to close every episode with one question, and that is if you could speak one piece of empowering wisdom into the hearts of the mothers listening, what would it be?
I mean, similar thing. Like, you can do this. I mean, again, with the education piece, that's the part that I always come back to for people. Whether you're just considering starting a family, whether you're in the thick of pregnancy and birth, or hopefully not while you're in full blown labor, but educating yourself in every realm of life is always going to set you up for success. Because I think the more you know, the better you can do. And I don't think you can make the best decision for yourself, your family, your child if you don't know your options and you don't have the ability to weigh the risks benefits. So I think educating yourself is the first step I would take to, no matter how you want your birth, educate yourself, set up your team, and believe in yourself and your baby. Don't forget about the baby being part of this process. Like I said with my first, how I talked, we had like a pep talk. So don't forget about your baby in this process too, because they have to do a lot of this too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so good. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on Her Birth, Her Story.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited that Kelsey came on here to share those stories because I know that those stories empowered you and inspired you and gave you more confidence, especially if you are a mom who wants to have an unmedicated hospital birth, that it is possible. Definitely need to educate yourself, prepare yourself, and make sure that everybody on your support team is all on the same page. Just like she said, she's not really a big fan of a birth plan because guess what? Birth is still going to birth. But having a page with just preferences so that when you're in labor land, the people who you have on your support team can advocate for you is huge. So thank you, Kelsey, so much for coming on and sharing your empowering stories. If this story inspired you or empowered you in any way, please share with another mom who needs to hear it. And if you know a mom who wants to have an unmedicated hospital birth, share this with her for her preparation. I really think that this episode is really going to help her confidence skyrocket so that she can have an empowering birthing experience as well. And don't forget to like, rate, review the show. This helps us to get this message out to as many moms as possible. And don't forget that this is your body, your baby, and your birth. We are reclaiming birth one story at a time. I also want to add this disclaimer that this is not to be taken as medical advice. And just remember, these are people's real experiences. These are things that moms have went through. This is their real, raw experience, their own personal convictions, and none of this is to be taken as medical advice. Please make sure that if you are seeking medical advice, then reach out to your own provider so that you can figure out what is best for you.